Cypress Semiconductor CEO T.J. Rogers agreed that the problem is not higher U.S. wages, but anti-business laws. He was quoted in an interview with CNET News. The killer factor in California for a manufacturer to create, say, 1,000 blue-collar jobs is a hostile government that doesn't want you there and demonstrates it in thousands of ways. Few Americans today realize that we have the second highest corporate tax rate in the world. And since Japan's new prime minister announced that he plans to reduce the country's corporate tax rate by 15%, the U.S. will soon have the highest corporate tax rate in the world. Why would anyone want to start a business here when they can do it for less money and keep more of the money they make by locating elsewhere? It's just another good reason to avoid the U.S. dollar. So is this. Did you know in 1979 there were 61 American companies that earned a top-level AAA credit rating from Moody's? Today, there are only 4. Automatic Data Processing, Exxon, Johnson & Johnson, and Microsoft. Does this sound like an economic recovery to you when only 4 companies in the entire country are stable enough to earn a AAA credit rating? It certainly doesn't to me, but it's nothing compared to what's going on in the housing sector. You want to know how crazy things are in the U.S. right now? Consider the bizarre state of the Las Vegas housing market, where the New York Times reports that building is booming again in a city where nearly 10,000 new houses are empty, thousands are in foreclosure, thousands of regular people have simply stopped paying their mortgages, and average prices are down more than 60% since 2006. What could possibly be driving this building mania? Well, it turns out that buyers don't want homes that were built during the boom because they sit in neighborhoods that look like ghost towns, and because many of these never-occupied houses are filled with cockroaches and other critters. So local builders are doing the worst possible thing they could be doing in Las Vegas right now. They're building more homes. Similar scenarios are taking shape in Phoenix and other U.S. cities. Of course, this might look good for economic numbers, but all it does is make the situation much, much worse in the long run. Want to see another crazy trick some businesses are using to artificially boost their earnings? This is just incredible to me. If you've been reading my work at all over the past few years, you know that I am extremely bearish on the for-profit education sector, such as the University of Phoenix. What could possibly be wrong with institutions that offer inexpensive education to tens of thousands of students across the country? Well, to me, it's just another symptom of how distorted and crazy our economy and our country have become. Here's what I mean. One of the crazy practices some institutions employ is to actually seek the enrollment of homeless people into their programs. You probably think I'm making this up, but Businessweek recently ran a report on this practice. Why would they do this? Well, because these folks qualify for federal grants and loans that are used to pay college tuition fees. According to the reports I read, the University of Phoenix, for instance, relies on federal funds for more than 85% of its revenues. At another for-profit school, Drake College of Business, almost 5% of the student body at its Newark, New Jersey campus is homeless, Businessweek reported. Of course, the majority of these students will never be able to repay their loans, but the colleges don't care. That's the government's problem, not theirs. Once again, it's the taxpayers like you and me who will be left holding the bag. And here's another good reason why investors are afraid of holding dollars right now. One of the most worrisome problems in the stock market is that we're basically repeating the exact same situation that occurred from 1937 to 1942. Most Americans think we've had this amazing stock market recovery since the financial crisis of 2008. And we have, to a certain extent. But we are not out of the woods. In fact, during America's last real economic collapse in the 1930s and 40s, we saw a similar drop and recovery before the markets crashed all over again. The situation is eerily similar. Look at this chart. It's one of the scariest I've seen in a long time. It shows an overlay of what happened to the stock market in 1937 compared to 2008. In both situations, we saw big crashes of about the exact same magnitude, and then a big recovery, again, of about the same size. But what will happen next? Well, if history is any guide, we could well have another big leg down in the stock market. That's exactly what happened 70 years ago. And with all the problems left unresolved in our economy today, it could certainly happen again, especially if the U.S. dollar loses its reserve status. As the Wall Street Journal reported, over the last year, the stock market has followed a path eerily similar to 1937. First, a strong, rapid run to a recovery high, same pace, same magnitude. Then a correction, again the same. Will we continue on the path that led to the correction of 37 into a collapse in 38? The point is, the cards are seriously stacked against us. This looming currency crisis is inevitable. Almost every state in the country is on the verge of bankruptcy. We have borrowed an impossible amount of money, which we will never be able to pay back. Our economy is an absolute mess. Taxes are sky high already, and will certainly go much higher over the next few years. And nearly all of the world's major financial players are preparing for an alternative to the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. To me, it is so obvious that we are about to experience a serious currency crisis that I can't believe people can deny this reality with a straight face. Again, if you don't believe a currency crisis is coming, just take another look at the price of gold and silver compared to the U.S. dollar over the past decade. It's obvious that smart investors want to hold gold and silver, not U.S. dollars. Anyone with any sense or basic understanding of economics can tell the U.S. dollar is doomed, and it's going to have major repercussions, which the average American has not yet even considered. So, what can you do? Well, I've done a lot of research on this and have found that there are a surprising number of simple things you can do to not only protect what you've currently got, but also to potentially make quite a bit of money as this currency crisis unfolds. So what should you do to protect and possibly even grow your wealth in the next few years? Well, there's a series of pretty simple financial moves I believe you should begin making immediately. And here's something I want you to keep in mind. I'm really only going to talk about your finances here. As far as protecting your family, well, it depends on your circumstances. If you live in an urban area, I recommend making sure you've got somewhere you can go in case there are riots or food and water shortages. I think there's a very good chance we'll see that in the next 2 years. Wherever you're going to wait out the chaos, I recommend you have basic food, water, and medical supplies to last you for at least 6 months. Remember, you won't be able to count on the government during this crisis. Think about it. If the government couldn't even save the city of New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina, how in the world will it save an entire country when all hell breaks loose? As I said earlier, the truth is the government won't even try to save individual American citizens. The government will be much more concerned with saving itself. As far as taking care of your money, to make sure you don't lose money and even use the situation to come out quite a bit ahead, well, that's where I can help you. All of the moves I recommend are simple and fairly straightforward to implement, at least right now. If you wait to do these things, however, they will almost certainly get very expensive, difficult, and even impossible to do. If you do these things now, not only will you be better prepared to weather the coming storm, I believe you could also make quite a bit of money over the next few years. And if I'm wrong, well, that's the best part. I think you'll still make very good gains. Even if all we get out of this crisis is a mild inflation, you can still be set up to do very, very well. Here are the specific steps you should take. Step number 1, get some of your money beyond the reach of the U.S. government. It's perfectly legal and a lot easier than you think. I know you probably don't believe me when I tell you that the U.S. government is going to implement policies to save itself, which are unimaginable right now. But remember, desperate governments will do very desperate things. That's why they outlawed the ownership of gold 80 years ago. That's why they are already talking about nationalizing automatic 401k and retirement plans, and why it might soon be against the law to open a foreign bank account or to move your money overseas without paying outrageous taxes. The good news is, I met recently with a man who is considered one of the top asset protection attorneys in America. I learned that there are 4 simple investments you can make right now which you do not have to report to the U.S. government. Don't get me wrong. When and if you ever sell these things years down the road, you are still required to pay taxes on your gains. But the great thing is, while you are holding these investments, so long as you play by the rules, neither you nor anyone else is required to report them to the government. This benefit should be obvious. The less the government knows about where you have your money, the better. They simply will have a very hard time taking what they don't know you have. I am personally putting a fairly significant portion of my portfolio into one of these assets. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly what I'm doing here in this video, but I will explain everything in full detail in my new report called The 4 Investment Assets You Do Not Have to Report to the U.S. Government, and I will gladly send you a copy free of charge. In addition to explaining how I'm protecting my own money, I'll show you 3 other places you can put your money which you legally do not have to report to the U.S. government. Of course, normally, it would cost you thousands of dollars to meet with this asset protection attorney and to take advantage of his best strategies. But I'll reveal everything you need to know to get started in this report. Plus, I'd like to send you the information on the second step you should take to protect yourself. That is, step number 2, how to acquire the world's safest assets, which are likely to perform best during this period. What I'm talking about here is buying as much gold and silver as you can reasonably afford. I know gold has had a huge run, jumping more than 300% in the past decade. But believe me, when the U.S. dollar loses its status as the world's reserve currency, this early run is going to be a mere afterthought. I will be surprised if gold does not reach $5,000 or $6,000 an ounce in the next few years. The smartest money managers in the world, people like George Soros, David Einhorn, and John Paulson, have all recently taken huge positions in gold. And I think you are crazy not to do the same. How should you do it? There are many options, and my research firm has recently published a great book called The Gold Investor's Bible, which details in full all of the best ways to own and hold gold bullion. In this volume, we reveal dozens of secrets about the gold industry, specifically the best ways to buy, sell, and store your gold. It explains why some gold coins are better than others, how to buy gold with zero dealer markup, how to easily and safely store some of your gold overseas, very cheaply, where to hide it, and much more. Not regularly available for sale, this book is valued at $24. I'd like to send you a copy totally free of charge. And what about silver? Well, I believe silver will serve a unique role during this currency crisis. Let me explain. For most of recorded history, the price of gold has been around 16 times the price of silver. This ratio, the so-called silver ratio, has fluctuated from time to time based on silver discoveries and attempts by governments to regulate the silver to gold ratio.